Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Just when you thought it was safe to open up your own DEI consulting business and get rich, at the same time you get to call everyone else except for you a racist. It turns out it's not such a great business anymore, which is why in business it always pays to move fast, because fads don't last forever. I have to say I'm glad to see this fad falling completely apart. Coming from the Miami Herald, we're in trouble. Miami DEI leader says state policies left the industry in free fall because Florida passed laws, which a state has a right to do. To stop all of this nonsense, at least a large portion of this nonsense, trying to legitimize racism and discrimination and force it on college students, people in work environments, everywhere. It's not completely fixed yet in Florida, but they definitely had the right idea. Miami Shores resident Ronnie Bennett launched South Florida People of Color in 2015 to educate businesses and universities about marginalized communities and help them learn why diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI for short, is important to the foundation of any company or organization, which it actually isn't. It's the opposite of what's important for a company at its foundation. At its foundation, a company has to serve its customers. It's got to get some kind of return on investment, or it's just a hobby. It's not really a business. And you should always respect your employees and treat everyone equally and give people an equal opportunity to succeed, not based on their skin color, based on their natural ability and how they apply themselves on the job. A decade later, after doing as much damage as possible in Florida, Bennett has seen her work limited by Florida legislation affecting DEI that has been supported by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, including the 2022 Stop Woke Act. She estimates that her annual revenue, which once hovered around $300,000, has been cut in half because of the legislation. And what do you call that? You call that a good start. Quote, "We're in trouble," said Bennett, who is 54 years old. Before the Stop Woke legislation, Bennett said her company, South Florida People of Color, had sufficient revenue to organize community events. That quickly stopped, she said, after DeSantis signed the act into law in 2022. Many of the businesses that she served stopped requesting the organization's services. And with the re-election of Donald Trump, an opponent to DEI measures, many Florida DEI leaders like Bennett are concerned about the future of their educational programming. You might also call that educational programming forced ideological brainwashing, and you'd be a little bit more accurate if you did it that way, but that's okay as long as it's getting stopped. Before creating South Florida People of Color, Bennett had a legitimate job in corporate America as a marketing director for IBM and HP. She found that companies often did not speak about diverse experiences like her own, and that bristled her. Quote, "I know how it is," she said. "You're usually the only black person in a department." Okay, but you could just do your work. I mean, that's the thing that this keeps coming back to is, okay, if you've managed to achieve a position based on your merit, that's fantastic. You don't have to go and start measuring people's sexual preferences, judging people based on their skin color. Judge people based on decency and their work, not based on their skin color. And you don't want a divisive environment where people are looking at each other differently because they're different races and there's an oppressor and an oppressed. None of that matters when you're at a company. You got to just do your work and do your job and be responsible. None of this nonsense belongs in the workplace. The 2003 birth of her son, Michael, changed her perspective. Living and working in Silicon Valley meant that she was spending much of her time around people unlike her and her Jamaican family. Moving to Miami allowed Bennett's family to better connect with their Caribbean roots. Because it's not really a big distance to go from Florida to visit Jamaica when you want to, and it's nice to be able to take trips and do all those things. Not everyone has the convenience of doing that, but you can't expect your employees to have the same cultural history that you do, and you can't insist that they do. You just have to literally go to work to do your job. I don't know why that's so complicated for some people. It's as if they really feel entitled to not have to work, to not have to do their jobs, to not have to perform and be judged based on the actual work that you're doing. In 2009, Bennett felt the need to do something about the racial inequities that she noticed in the corporate space. The space that gave her a career opportunity that was an excellent career opportunity, but just wasn't good enough for her. She wanted more. Some white men got promoted more than other coworkers, she said, and Bennett believed that the issues she was experiencing were systemic. Well, was their work better than hers or better than other people's work? Yeah, it probably was, because many corporations for a long time have just tried to do business and make money. Unfortunately, this diversity nonsense didn't just happen a couple of years ago. A lot of people don't get promoted based on the quality of their work, and it's been that way for a while. It's long overdue to turn that around. Bennett felt the need to do something about this and began leading sessions on diversity and inclusion at HP before leaving and working as a consultant for a Fort Lauderdale company. And let's reflect for a second on this former corporate executive's experience at HP. She was a marketing director, at least according to her. I'm sure that's true. What is she doing giving sermons and speeches and threats or who knows whatever else about inclusion when you're supposed to be a marketing director? They don't need that. They just need you to actually figure out how to help coordinate selling the product. If you want to give cultural experiences and say, look, as a Jamaican person, I know that we want to buy things this certain way, there could always be insight that you have culturally that does make some sense. It's not explained that way, but it looks like it was just a very generous thing for HP to allow this person to actually do while at the company, being paid, being retained by the company. But even that wasn't good enough. In 2015, Bennett officially launched South Florida People of Color to do DEI training and organize community events around diversity. Her training focuses on the backgrounds of people from different walks of life and goes beyond PowerPoint slides and talking about biases, she said. With a focus on intersectionality, audiences are broken into smaller groups and ask questions about their respective identities and learned experiences, which none of this applies on the job. Absolutely zero about this applies on the job. The only thing this could get you to do on the job is not focus on your work and on your work goals. It's also a great way to destroy any kind of team environment, any kind of good energy that you have with the other people that you work with. Each person usually says something unique about who they are, and through that vulnerability, bonds are formed. Through South Florida People of Color, Bennett has also been able to facilitate awkward dinner events where Hispanic, Black, and other people of marginalized backgrounds gather to have candid conversations about race and identity. Because for these inclusion experts and consultants, you have to exclude certain races. Otherwise, you're not being inclusive enough. That's how they operate. Great thing that they're losing their businesses. Quote, we're getting people together that would normally never be together, she said. They come out of this wanting to be friends. Bennett believes it is imperative for Black people like her to be educators and inform others as a way of preserving Black history. Quote, American history is Black history, she said. During the pandemic, Bennett's work became more national, and she had customers as far away as New York and Wyoming. She saw the need for her organization's services immediately following George Floyd's death in May 2020, but never saw the sudden boom in business as sustainable and believed that much of her new clients' interest was performative. The reason why the new client interest would seem performative, like they didn't really believe in it, they were just pretending to believe in it, is because it's really nonsensical racist garbage. So if people are going to express interest in it, not everybody is really built into that, especially because it's like the complete opposite of team building at companies, of trying to give everyone a chance to succeed and everyone a chance to participate at companies. It's not merit-based, which means you are insulting everyone who has put the work in or may even have just natural talents that make them be able to be extra functional for a company, which when you have employees that are extra functional and really perform well at a company, those employees can set an incredibly beneficial example for everyone else. Some of the best employees, not everybody, but some of the best ones, can actually mentor and teach other employees how to succeed, regardless of skin color. And when you take that out of the environment, when you just create this destructive, divisive environment, you lose opportunities that you never knew you were going to have. It's a complete destruction of the culture of the organization in favor of an illegal and inappropriate racist approach to work. As you can see, I'm not a really big fan. Quote, one client had a president change and the new president wasn't into DEI training, she said. As if that was a crime. It's not a crime. sensible presidents, sensible people leading businesses will not be interested in DEI. Similar changes that the businesses Bennett served and the policies DeSantis supported indicated to Bennett that finding clients for the work she did was going to become more difficult. While Stop Woke's impact on statewide DEI businesses has been significant, a court decision recently changed the limitations it can place on companies that want to implement DEI training. In June of 2022, Honeyfund.com, a Clearwater wedding registry company, filed a lawsuit challenging the act and ultimately won in court. This past March, a federal appeals court found that part of the law was a violation of businesses' free speech rights, and in July, a federal judge issued an order permanently blocking the state from enforcing that portion of the Stop Woke law. Quote, "It's important because the Stop Woke Act for businesses became very prominent after passing," said Alexander Rudlett, a Brickell lawyer and public policy consultant. Quote, "It made every business fearful it couldn't participate in DEI training in fear of the act. Since March, it's clear this doesn't apply to businesses." Rudlett believes many Florida companies have not realized that the Stop Woke Act, as it pertains to businesses, was deemed unconstitutional. He believes organizations like South Florida People of Color need to raise awareness about the court ruling. Quote, "A lot of deep and widespread harm has been inflicted over the past few years," he said. "People like Ronnie Bennett have a lot of work to do to undo that harm. Beyond the implications of the Stop Woke Act, Melba versus Pearson, the director of Florida International University's Jack Gordon Institute for Public Policy, believes much of the corporate interest in DEI has waned in recent years because it was performative in the first place. Following Floyd's death, companies responded with initiatives to support Black people and other marginalized groups that have since been under-resourced or eliminated altogether. Quote, "If at any side of adversity you're quick to cut and run and avoid your core values, it makes you wonder if this is what one of your core values was to begin with." According to Pearson, if DEI is part of your office culture, those efforts would continue under a different name or a different manner. There is no office culture where treating people differently based on their race is appropriate. It's not core to any office culture, except for office cultures that are being eliminated and need to continue to be eliminated. Everyone must be treated, regardless of their skin color, the absolute same way. At least as best as possible. We're all just human beings here. But to try to institute a permanent change in how people treat each other in an office environment, based on their skin color, their race, their sexual preferences, their gender, is completely absurd. And it also puts a tax on a business. It creates friction in a business that's completely unmanageable. Working in academia has allowed Pearson to see the dramatic changes to school curriculum in real time. A dozen FIU students and professors told the Miami Herald in November that the limitations placed upon professors and general education courses that have been removed are a form of censorship. Pearson takes solace in the way her students have stayed aware of the changes and questioned them. During lectures and webinars, they frequently ask her about the changes and what can be done to preserve their coursework. They do that obviously for extra points. Mostly students are really not into this unless they were taking advantage of these kinds of programs, the DEI programs, the free cash scholarships for people of only specific skin colors. When they were taking advantage of them and then they lost them, some of them are a little upset about that, but they're coming to realize, no, that was never appropriate in the first place. Quote, "At our university, we saw dramatic changes because of the law and the disbanding of different departments designed for DEI work," she said. By that same token, it doesn't stop people from discussing information. Like Pearson, Bennett remains steadfast in her work. She's looking for an angel investor. An angel investor is someone that supports businesses so that they basically give them very generous terms. They're not like a vulture investor, which is the opposite. You would think of an angel investor, and you'd be right. An angel investor is going to give you a shot because they believe in what you're doing, and they aren't really going to hold you as accountable for a return on investment as a typical investor would, and definitely not a vulture investor or a venture capital investor. Those two things are different, vultures and venture capitalists, but you can understand, an angel investor is supposed to be pretty hands-off, just give you a shot, almost like your uncle trying to put you in business. But she wants this angel investor because she believes her organization's mission of educating people from different backgrounds about other cultures is more important than ever. Quote, "We owe it to the next generation to make progress for them," she said. "I want to be able to dismantle systemic racism in America." Well, it should be very easy to dismantle systemic racism in America because it does not exist. If you get offered the opportunity to work at a company and all they want you to do is show what you can do, what merit you personally have to succeed at that company, show how well you work with others, how you don't create problems with others, you don't create friction, you're a team player. That's what a team player is. It's one of the oldest expressions in reference to business, that you get along well with others, that you're goal-focused at the company. That's what you need to do at a company. When you have that opportunity, that's something to really appreciate. You don't need an angel investor to do that. All you have to do is show up, do your work, go where you're appreciated, and if your company doesn't appreciate you, go find another great opportunity based on merit. They are out there. You just have to work hard. Skin color is not going to give you that opportunity anymore. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.